So welcome everyone. My name is Miguel Paredes Maldonado, and I am the head of ESALA, the Edinburgh School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone to the ESALA visiting lecture delivered by Israel Alba Ramis and entitled Infrastructural Landscapes. We do hope that this will be the first of a series of events and activities open to the public, to the city of Edinburgh, to its industries, and to its practitioners of the built environment and beyond. They are meant to involve both staff and students across all the disciplines that are represented by ESALA, and that's architecture, landscape architecture, architectural history, and interior design. So ESALA and its mothership, as it were, the Edinburgh College of Art, are providing the forum and the intellectual steer to make this happen. However, this event is also very generously supported by a number of institutions and constituencies. One of them is the Cervantes Chair at the University of Edinburgh, which is represented today by the Cervantes Chair, Alexis Groman, over there in the corner. We also have support from the Cervantes Institute in Manchester, represented by its director, Pedro Jesus Eusebio Cuesta. We also have Spanish consulate in Edinburgh, represented by the General Consul of Spain, Santiago Miralles. Thanks, Santiago, for joining us tonight. And also, importantly, we also have sponsorship from Saphir UK. And that's a really important thing for these sort of activities to happen from a financial perspective. So we are hugely appreciative of this. Of course, other colleagues have put a lot of work to make this happen. So big thanks should go to ESALA colleague Pepe Navarrete. I can't find him, he's over there. But he has had a major role in organizing this, and I'm extremely thankful for that. Thanks also should go to the ECA events team for somehow putting up with us and allowing for this to happen tonight. So Israel's lecture will be exploring the intersection of a number of themes that are really important for, I think, everyone in this room. And I'm referring to the intersection of architecture, territory, infrastructure, landscape, and ecology. And I would dare say that these themes are all intertwined in Israel's presentation tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Israel, who will be speaking for around 45 minutes and will be presenting his work and research. But we will also have 3 panelists that will be joining us at the table for a round table, and I will be introducing them too. Israel Alba is an architect and a member of the Spanish Society of Landscape Architects. In the year 2000, he established his firm of architecture, design, and landscape architecture in Madrid. Since 2018, he's design studio professor at Universidad Rey Juan Carlos, where he currently leads the architectural design department. Between 2016 and 2019, he was also a guest lecturer at the School of Architecture of the State University of New York. Previously, he was also a professor at the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca. He's got a very substantial track record of international lectures, but his work has also been published, widely exhibited, widely as well, internationally. And that includes contributions to the Venice Biennale in 2018 in the Spanish pavilion and in 2021 in the Italian pavilion. Through his operating platform, Waste Lab Can, its architecture focuses on the issue of waste and its possible solutions. I'm very briefly going to introduce our panelists. We have Rai Marino, who's somewhere over there, so I'm not wearing my glasses. So Rai is a 4th final year undergraduate architecture student in ESALA, and he's also a member of ARCSOC, the University of Edinburgh Architecture Society. Rai is a member of the executive board there. This society is led by ESALA students, and it's extremely active with their own lecture series. and other events such as the forthcoming Voices of the 1%, which will be looking into the achievements and the experiences of Black architects and Black female architects in the industry. We have Kate Carter over there, a senior lecturer in architecture, technology, and environment at ESALA. She works and helps develop policy about sustainable architecture, low carbon construction, and low energy design. Kate is also the staff lead for ECAN, the ESALA Climate Action Network, which is a student and staff group aiming to tackle the climate emergency in our pedagogy, research, and community practices at ESALA. And finally, we have Jonathan Gardner, who is a contemporary archaeologist and critical heritage studies researcher. Jonathan was based at ECA until quite recently, and his work examines processes of recent and contemporary large-scale landscape transformations in the UK using archaeological methods. Working in the context of ECA, he recently completed a project that examined the creation and use of waste-modified landscapes, which is aptly titled Reimagining British Waste Landscapes. So that's me. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Israel to take up the mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Good evening. I'm delighted to be here to talk about infrastructural landscapes. But before I begin, I want to thank the Instituto Cervantes with Pedro Eusebio and the Cervantes Chair at the University of Edinburgh with Alexis O'Gorman, the ESALA with Miguel Paredes and Pepe Navarrete. Thank you for your support and your coordination. And to the Consulate of Spain in Edinburgh and the Spanish company Santiago Miralles, thank you very much. And especially thanks to all of you for coming and joining us today, this evening. I hope you enjoy this lecture, because this lecture is about sharing some thoughts, some interest, experiences, ideas, research, projects, results, and above all, doubts and uncertainties. There are a lot of them in our work. The chronological order of the images that doesn't match with reality. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, everything is blending, blurring, ideas come and go, doesn't matter. So the only thing I'm sure is about one thing. It is a time where architects must definitely get involved in waste architecture. So to introduce the subject, and before seeing 3 build projects carried out by my office, I will try to set a context. I think that's important, so let's begin. This is an interactive lecture, so I'll let you read for a while. I forgot to say also hello to all those who are watching us by streaming. Because my mother is watching us, so hello, Mom. I forgot that. Then, okay. It was inevitable being here in Scotland to start by quoting a fundamental character in this story that we're going to go through together today, Ian McHugh. Unfortunately, he was right. Humankind has always had the need to dominate the world, obviously in the wrong way. And one of its worst signs is the formation of immense landfills that accumulate millions of tons of waste uncontrolled. This will be the common thread of this lecture. As you can see, it is a problem that affects all of us everywhere, including here in Scotland. It is a global problem that affects us locally. Waste and its consequences are no longer invisible. Nothing that we understand by waste disappears from nature on its own. The Italian environmental historian Marco Armiero has defined it perfectly. We have entered in the age of waste, the Wastocene, as a specific alternative to the narrative of the Anthropocene. The metabolism of the city and its externalities are at the center of contemporary public debate. Even more effective than reducing, recycling, reusing, or recovering is to avoid generating waste. So where does our waste go? Rather than to waste treatment facilities of any kind we can imagine, the rubbish goes into nature, just like that. All the images we have seen previously were natural places. This causes serious environmental damage, which, due to the ignorance at first, has caused the problem to reach a colossal dimension that is difficult to reverse, like the entropy that the American artist Robert Smithson spoke of. Systems are becoming increasingly entropic, more chaotic, releasing more energy and transforming themselves. Human behavior, lack of environmental awareness, and insufficient waste collection and treatment infrastructures exacerbate the problem in all areas, regardless of density and use. The reality is that we don't know what to do with our waste. If we don't know what to do, why do we keep producing it? We think we know, but in fact, we are not able to assimilate the production. Neither is nature. In this regard, 15 years ago, I wrote that the problem of municipal solid waste generated in our cities is not solved. It just simply displaced. This is still the case today. And if we are aware of it, then we should ask ourselves, why do we still produce waste? We depend more on education and awareness rather than on technology. Politics, will, education, if we are all concerned, what is our task in this project of eco-social transformation? Whether we want to or not, it is inevitable. What is our relationship to landscape? We could say that until the 18th century, the notion of landscape was a garden designed in an enclosure. There are magnificent examples, especially the Arab gardens, such as those in La Alhambra, in Granada, Spain. The notion of landscape changed when the English gardeners in the 18th century decided to jump over the enclosure and understand that all of nature is a landscape. In a continuum, in these gardens, Ubedal Price, Pay Knight, Capability Brown, William Gilpin, we find the origin of the concept of continuous landscape that fuses the natural and the artificial, the picturesqueness. They proposed going beyond the garden enclosed in an enclosure, isolated from nature as an static and aesthetic element, to understand that everything is landscape, that all nature is a garden, and that relationship between humans and non-humans is inevitable, all associated with the passage of time and natural processes, claiming the public condition of these places. At the same time, they are precursors of a proposal based on the relationship between process and form, and as indivisible aspects of the same phenomenon, where the artificial is not distinguished from the natural and where topographical reliefs arouse interest. The word garden implies design. Landscape does not. Landscape has no scale. It was not until the appearance of the landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted at the end of the 19th century that the English landscape tradition found a successor, establishing new links between the garden and the notion of the public, previously almost unexplored. Among these, his most important ideals were the public and continuous condition of these new spaces and their dialectical landscape of relations with the real away from the formal, in which technique and energy guide the project and lead it to form and not the other way around, together with the importance of creating a new biologically active soil. Olmsted showed us that technique and energy under an artificial manipulated topography with a natural appearance allow the development of new biological life and activity on them. The horizontal condition as a new geological stratum, like Olmsted's non-geological strata in Boston's Franklin Park. And here appears for the first time one of the three conditions that define the contemporary landscape and the project that we have worked on, continuity. Almost a century later, coming back to Ian McHarg, he would return to this issue to bring it to the center of the debate in parallel to the work of Robert Smithson, the North American artist, landscape artist. Both works were published in 1967. We are interested in Ian McHarg's Design with Nature, firstly because of his vision based on new awareness and relationship between nature and the environment produced by human beings, and secondly, because of his approach to landscape based on a multidisciplinary condition, using an overlapping system to reveal the condition of a landscape, from beauty to utility, including vegetation, geography, hydraulics, productivity, and energy. All of this is based on respect for the environment. Design with nature is nothing more than giving continuity to what already exists in accordance with its characteristics or condition, so that the natural and the artificial can coexist simultaneously. Ecology is the basis of a new method which describes natural processes and transformation factors, a new hybrid between the natural and the artificial. Also, as I mentioned, in 1967, Robert Smithson published a tour of the monuments of Passaic, where he proposes a look at the destructive places of modern industry, condemned to be invisible on the understanding that these places should acquire a visibility equivalent to the picturesque proposals about wild places, or what is the same about nature. This action, moreover, takes place mainly on the ground level. Traces of human action on the territory or topographies. He reinterpreted Olmsted's work and promoted the construction of artificial topographies on wastelands as a basic operation of human beings in their relationship with the environment in which the passage of time was recorded. Smithson was interested in places where it was possible to ask new questions and pose new answers. He called them non-sites, defining a new conception of the world through two fundamental concepts, entropy and recycling, where natural processes are integrated in continuity with physical and energetic ones. And this continuity arises from the manipulation of the ground through the construction of artificial topographies, while at the same time allowing the appearance of new surfaces for new, as yet unknown uses. Therefore, topography as a contemporary conscious fact in our relationship with nature is the second condition of the contemporary landscape that is interesting to us. These examples have shown us that they are registers of nature and the passage of time from the realm of research. But architecture and landscape architecture provide applied solutions in the world of the real, the ground plane, the soil, as a support for new activities. Nature, based on the picturesque principles of the English gardeners, who gave continuity to the natural and the artificial simultaneously, and which, as we shall see, would later be taken by Olmsted, and Smithson would be responsible for overlapping continuity and topography. Thus, continuity, topography, and nature, based on an unbreakable natural artificial system, are three key conditions for understanding the contemporary landscape project. Gilles Clément, the French gardener, argues that the garden has become a planetary garden, just as the picturesque did. And therefore, one depends on the other, so that continuity is revealed as a fundamental condition. Earth is the garden enclosure of the 21st century, so it's a finite system where recycling, understood as recovery and transformation, is essential. Relief or topography contributes to the extension of diversity. In other words, continuity is critical to ensure it. We could affirm then that infrastructural systems, understood at the scale of the territory, are themselves generators of landscape. Today, these systems include the processes of recycling waste that in reality is not actually recycled, it's hidden. We need a critical look. A critical look should make us reflect on our relationship with waste and with the planet through the environment and nature. It is clear so far that we live in a system based on a fusion of the natural and the artificial. We have gone from occupying the territory to exploiting it and annihilating it, to trying to hide this fact. The paradigm of ecology, which fuses the natural and the artificial, transforms our vision on the world at the beginning of the 21st century. In fact, it has been transforming it since the end of the 20th century. But we still only understand it in small, scattered fragments, awaiting a truly revolutionary process that will bring about a real change in our relationship with the planet. Apparently, we do not have the answer, although small changes in that direction are beginning to be identified. So what can architects and landscape architects do when facing this phenomenon of waste? Research and dissemination of results will also help us. I have been doing it for the last 20 years. I wrote this in the conclusions of my doctoral thesis 10 years ago. Waste should not be seen as a problem, but as an opportunity. This is our new task. For the time being, this is perhaps the best approach that we can be taking in our struggle to manage the growing mountains of waste. Well, I was wrong. More can be done through the visibility of these projects, raising awareness to generate less waste and improve our relationship with the environment. We can help by projecting the change and making the invisible visible, using architecture and landscape architecture as a vehicle, as a tool. At the same time, the damage caused to nature, but not returning it to its former state. This is not possible. So at this point, what is an infrastructural landscape? In the words of the landscape architect, Pierre Belanger, infrastructural landscapes can be defined as a contemporary alignment on the disciplines of landscape architecture, civil engineering, and urban planning. Soil is the basis of architecture and landscape urbanism, and therefore also of infrastructural landscapes. The infrastructures that make our contemporary way of life possible are invisible processes. In our Western world, infrastructures are somehow given to us, which naturalizes them and makes them invisible. Let me quote Pierre Belanger. We spend very little time thinking about where our water comes from, or how our power is produced, where our food is grown, how far it travels, and how it gets there, or even where our waste goes. It is fragmented while remaining continuous. Here we have again this idea of continuity. These traces can also represent the opportunity to recover a damaged place. Recycling is also the capacity to change. We must reinvent habitable space by recycling the useless, such as waste. The infrastructural approach to landscape makes it possible to recover the links between architecture and engineering, to incorporate political and economic agendas of territorial order, to act with the flexibility demanded by future, and to understand the project as an open process, but with the responsibility of constructing a complete present and constructing the landscape itself. Infrastructures are capable of simultaneously putting city, landscape, and energy on the same plane, on the same level. Starting at the Industrial Revolution, the landscape is definitively built through infrastructures. So time, change, and continuity, together with the indeterminacy of use of or functions, are part of the strategies that will make it possible to operate in these places from a contemporary point of view. They are open, diverse, flexible, and changing places over time. The idea of designing these places through strategies that allow for changes over time is appropriate, as the urban structures that originated them will end up incorporating them again without knowing at what time and with what needs. We are at a historical moment of great relevance, facing a change of paradigm with regard of the problem of urban waste and its consequences. The production and consumption model is now beginning to be confronted. So what can we do, architects, in this context? First, give visibility to the processes of recovery from the damage that has been caused in order to prevent it from happening again, if it's possible. And in this work of making visible, with the means and tools available, to return the deteriorated place to a state as natural as possible. During 22 years of activity, until its closure in 2000, the Valdemingómez landfill accumulated more than 21 million tons of waste, rising just over 40 meters above its original level. The exploitation of the landfill was planned in accordance with the techniques that had been used for years in Europe, especially in England. This system had 3 stages: shredding of the waste at the plant, transport to the unloading platform known as a landfill, and finally, spreading and compacting of said waste. The process resulted in layers of inert material about 20 centimeters thick every 2 days, which served to prevent rodents, bad odors, and dispersion of materials by the wind, as well as ensuring fire prevention. The Valdemingómez landfill in Madrid can be identified as one of Robert Smithson's monumental vacancies that he describes in the aforementioned A Tour of the Monument of Passaic. They are understood to be sites of new opportunities with a dense and flexible natural and technological topography that can support the new expression of individuals' life. The recovery and transformation of the landfill represents a model of the continuity that woodlands can offer for the surrounding landscape using indigenous species that blended with the near Southeast Regional Park to convert the area into a public park. Recovering these spaces yields a new continuous landscape system with new natural topographies arising from artificial processes, incorporating energy systems along with other infrastructure elements to allow the landscape's transformation and growth over time. The process carried out in Valdemingómez thereby recalls the concepts of entropy and recycling developed by Smithson. First comes deterioration, then recycling, introducing the time factor as an enabler of change. It was very important to cover the landfill with topsoil for the initial pioneer plant colony, which would prepare the means for sustaining more advanced species by contributing with organic matter to develop the soil. So on inert medium, the landfill is transformed through the development of a biologically productive soil into a complete self-sustaining ecosystem. All possible plant formations founded in the surroundings were planted, following the recommendations set out in the Southeast Regional Park Master Plan. A series of public uses emanated from the recovery and reforestation project, and the new space will soon incorporate trails, paths, a cycle path connected to the rest of the city's mall, woodlands, rest areas, wetlands, offering observatories of the new ecosystems developed there, and viewpoints over the city. In the spring of 2003, the landfill transformed into a large forest park of more than 110 hectares, began its new life as an open space for leisure and enjoyment. One of the keys to these projects, introducing the time factor as one of the essential variables, is to consider change for its own sake, without predicting what that change will be. So, time is a key factor in the complete recovery and transformation of these sites. Today, the park has yet to open to the public so they can make free and continuous use of that space, since the extraction of the biogas stored in the landfill produces constant settling of the soil. According to current legislation, spaces destined for public must be redefined safely following the 30 years of environmental monitoring necessary after their closure. The landscape vegetation and water objectives are not usually very visible at the beginning of these recovery processes, as they are long-term proposals and depend on time and change in natural processes. The aim is to set in motion a naturalization process that develops over time without the hand of man being perceived and necessary. The landscape project is known when it begins, but not when it ends. It is necessary to know with whom we are working, with nature. And nature does not have specific objectives, as architecture can have. This type of project responds to common and recognizable characteristics such as topography, geometry, water, and vegetation. They are also an opportunity to become new nature reserves, which are so important today. The use of water is not merely an aesthetic artifice, but a response to new environmental problems generating new wetland ecosystems, taking advantage of the surface water collection network and drainage of the park, whose surface, the soil, has seen its topography modified in the construction of the new landscape. One of the main objectives was to return the area to as natural a state as possible. The reality of an urban waste landfill full of organic matter that makes it different from other landfills needs to act with certain precautions that to some extent condition its development over time, although it does allow an important use of the accumulated biogas as energy to convert it into electricity, while at the same time reducing the emission of CO2 into the atmosphere. The strategies developed in Valdemingómez bring it closer to the new models of metropolitan open spaces, making visible what was hidden, linking the metropolis to the territory through a landscape recovered and converted today into a natural topography emanating from an artificial process. The Valdemingómez Landfill Forest Park proposes a new type of public space that will ensure that accumulated waste can be harnessed for energy and that the landscape has continuity with its immediate surroundings. The tree species planted have taken root and the wetlands have become home to small colonies that form part of the natural cycle of their environment. The path, as the backbone system of these strategies, is fundamental as a connecting element, enabling continuity and accessibility. In the recovery of an urban waste landfill, the most important thing is to ensure that the plantations take root in the new soil. From this point, a distinction must be made between the upper and lower parts of a landfill, as well as between horizontal and sloping surfaces. Trees on the horizontal surfaces marking paths, and the shrubs and plants on the slopes. Landfills are opportunities to achieve a balance between the city and nature when it comes to projecting the contemporary landscape. At the rubbish dump, it is possible to reinvent a place by redefining new unexpected uses in tune with the natural processes happening over time. From a technical point of view, the plans to recover and transform the landscape of Valdemingómez landfill encompass 4 basic actions. The sealing of the entire surface to prevent methane gas emissions into the atmosphere as the result of the decomposing organic matter, and stop rainwater filtering through the waste and contaminating the subsoil. Second, the installation of a degassing network to extract the biogas accumulated. Third, the construction of a power plant to transform this biogas into electricity. And finally, number 4, the transformation of the surface into a forest park. The work carried out in Valdemingómez offers up a potential way for addressing the construction process in a place where waste has become part of the ground, creating natural topographies for the new metropolitan uses that arise from artificial processes such as waste dumping. This approach is inspired by the vision of Robert Smithson and shares with Landa the use of nature as a support and material to enhance the value of a place. This contributes to creating landscapes that are intended to be sustainable, usable, and beautiful. The specific values of the landscape we are interested in are constant and invariable: topography, hydraulics, vegetation, and pathways. From this point on, it is not so much that form that interests us as the relationship between process and form. We look for a flexible and adaptable support for spontaneous and unplanned activities. The project as an evolving, open, non-closed system. That's very important. The recovery and transformation of the Valdemingómez landfill is based on this principle. The image fixed at the beginning will not be the image 30 years from then, nor will be it the image or the system necessary to open it to the public. At that time, both the landscape and the system will be redefined, but it will be possible thanks to its initial decision as an evolving system. Agricultural techniques have proven to be effective in allowing the initial development of these soils for better rooting, but also for this, and this is fundamental, a system capable of ordering a place. The Valdemingómez Forest Park project is not therefore a park as such. That's important. It is only the beginning of what it might become, a preliminary state. We have laid the foundations for an optimistic future. It has not been designed as such. Only non-human topographical and landscape strategies with an initial order that will be transformed to build a biologically active soil. After 30 years, and with all these processes completed, we will be in a position to propose new human strategies that incorporate this new place into the metropolitan structure of Madrid through new programs. The value of this project is that they are always open to change. The characteristic of these open spaces do not respond to formal questions of design, more typical of the 20th century, but to strategies of transformation of the territory and hybridization between the city and the natural environment, something proper to the 21st century. There is no definitive landscape. It cannot be controlled by design. It does not end, it evolves. The landscape seen in this way is a privileged place for the future. At this point, I would like to share, when we just finished this, this project, and we have, I think, an interesting video showing all this process. It just takes 4 minutes, and I want to share it with you. Okay. There we are. All right. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next project, and we're going to remain for a while here in Valdemingómez in Madrid. This project is very close to the forest park. It is the Madrid Waste Recycling Plant. So the new location, see if this works. Yes, more or less. Okay. So the Valdemingómez forest, the new location for the waste recycling plant here in Madrid is this one over here. So this is the forest park that we've seen. This is another building that our office designed and built many years ago. And we designed also this small park with the idea of connecting this old park with the new one here. So the idea was to shift this new installation here. So the new location for the waste recycling plant in Valdemingómez resolves within the process of landscape restoration of the former landfill two difficult situations that arise in the development of the forest park. On the one hand, its compromised location within the area to be recovered as it interrupts its continuity, and on the other hand, the necessary road access to the plant. The current position, which you can see it here right now, this is the forest park and this is a new landfill. So this is a very important situation for the building. The current position of the plant located between the forest park and the Environmental Technology Center, that building that I mentioned before, compromises to a large extent the transformation and recovery that is being carried out. So we decided to shift the new plant to an edge position in a limit between landfills, considering it to be the ideal solution to make easier such transformation process. This operation will definitely sow the entire landscape recovery into a continuum so that the future users of this new metropolitan public space will be able to enjoy a walk without interruptions or barriers caused by busy roads, as it currently happens today. So the main decision were then continuity again, and to seize the strength of the edge, the limit, shaped in this case as the slope of a landfill, the transition from the plateau to the perimeter. In this way, the main building takes advantage of the existing topography and folds its roof like giant slopes with their berms, reproducing the silhouette of the landfill. In a gesture according to the site that helps to understand the scale of the intervention in the territory, while responding at the same time to the implementation and organization of the waste treatment process, which works in favor of gravity. The building, coated with transparent polycarbonate, absorbs the different tones and shades of the sky and the landscape. It reflects light and color. It blurs and modifies the perception of its scale, appearing smaller than what it really is. From the outside, it looks opaque and mysterious, while without revealing its content. On the other inside, we discover a sequence of monumental spaces full of light, mechanized and highly industrialized with silent conveyor belts, endlessly displacing tons of waste. These strategies indeed help to reduce the scale of the building and to find the continuity desired. This display of solutions also aims to dignify the work of the people in charge of managing our waste, to date, generally forgotten and associated with the material found inside the plant. Walkways, stairs, and bridges for visitors allow them to observe and contemplate the management of our waste in order to raise awareness and sensitize. This is at present the best way ahead. I want to talk now about construction details because just let me say at this point that I believe that the role of the architect is to build our environment, the human environment. So we need to move from ideas to construction details to make things come to reality. From the forest park, only the landscaped roof covering the waste reception pits can be seen, slightly inclined in the opposite direction to the slope to become a parent end and connecting element with the landscape, using the same local species and textures that cover it of low-cost maintenance. The metal finishing of the roof and some skylights made of the same polycarbonate used in the facades reveal the existence of an artificially interior space. And the last project I want to share with you is the Valencia waste recycling plant. This is very close to the disaster that happened to our country a few days ago, and I have many friends there. The recycling plant is located on the outskirts of the Valencia city in an area close to the airport, where the fields of orchards are spread out like a carpet of ochre and green, a typical image in this agricultural place of fertile land and mild Mediterranean climate. The elements of the surroundings, such as topography, scale, agricultural patterns, colors, and textures, are used as a source of inspiration, responding at the same time and with accuracy to a complex functional program with strict constraints, with a simple idea and a unitary image, establishing an intense relationship between landscape and technology. In this context, we did not feel it was necessary to use either the form of or the image to reveal the content of the building, inviting to visitors to discover, like in Madrid, a monumental, mechanized and industrialized interior space full of waste. The implementation and organization of the waste treatment process, which works in favor of gravity, have been developed by making the best possible use of topographical conditions of the site. The fragmentation of the main building into 4 longitudinal bands reflects the internal logic of waste treatment process and the need to have natural light for all the internal work. These bands extended along the ground with colored gravel and natural grass in continuity, again, with the facades and roofs of the main building, negotiate in scale with the landscape, linking the project with the ground and fitting it into its immediate surroundings. The roofs reproduce at the same time both the industrial process and the surroundings agricultural landscapes. The Valencia waste recycling plant is an infrastructural nature that is generated through geometry as an architectural tool. This approach attempts to insert an artificial element into an anthropocentric natural environment profoundly transformed by the human action, where scale becomes a fundamental factor. This project, conceived as a public facility, also incorporates a visitor center and an education area to make the energy possibilities of the plant visible. And here again, to raise awareness among citizens who also have a key role, we have a key role to play in the management of what we chose to throw away. As a kind of an observatory, it is a place to study, understand, and contemplate contemporary society and its relationship with environment. The tour for visitors has been designed inside of the main building, which together with the educational and exhibition areas interrelates waste, city, energy, and landscape. From here, the work with light and space aims to dignify a place for people to work, traditionally dark and forgotten in the architectural imaginary, as I mentioned before. Reflections and colors play a fundamental role in this project when addressing the question of size. Thus, the roofs merge into the landscape following the use of its colors, while the facades of the building, through reflections of the materials used, are blurred. Okay, we're approaching the end. So let's rethink about the infrastructural landscapes. We do not confront nature anymore. We work with nature, manipulating its forms through topography to build sustainable, beautiful, and useful landscapes. The 3 projects presented today share a characteristic: seeking continuity with existing landscape through the manipulation of the ground, the topography. In the 3 cases, in different ways, but always highlighting its artificial condition without renouncing to it. It is not about wrapping a box. Most of waste facilities are just shiny boxes with a more or less sophisticated design. Continuity is the key question. Learn from those first picturesque gardeners and landscape architects. Continuity, but without resigning to the artificial condition. The infrastructural landscape takes a scale into account. The relationships of the architecture of the territory operate on another level, on another scale. The macro versus the micro. The continuity of the landscape is key in these projects. We have seen how this works in Boston, Valencia, or Madrid pursue the continuity of the landscape through geometry and structure using, among others, soil, folds, and cuts. If you had asked me 10 years ago about these projects, I would have answered, proud to have had the good fortune to design and build these buildings, thinking that we had the solution. Today, aware of our relationship with the environment, I am concerned about having to carry out these projects because the damage does not disappear. We just hide it. As a society, we urgently need to reflect on this challenge. Fortunately, another way of looking teaches us how to improve the Earth's surface through human intervention. Human action can improve a landscape, as is the case of Valdemín Gómez or others. First damaged, then recovered. Probably Robert Smithson's greatest contribution was to turn unnatural works into a record of nature and the passage of time. One of his main ambitions was to create works that were not natural, but which could reveal nature and time, aspects that he rescued by rereading Olmsted's work. As a result, he promoted the construction of artificial topographies on wastelands as a basic operation of human beings in their relationship with the environment, while exploring his non-sites in parallel. In this sense, the landscape that we are interested is characterized, as already mentioned, on the basis of three conditions: topographical, useful, and productive, in terms of public use and energy, thus overcoming the aesthetic condition of the picturesque ideal, which is a further step in its contemporary construction as systems of infrastructures capable of organizing urban planning. The landscape is made up of strata, successive layers that slowly accumulate as a record of time, at the same time as it is affected by different changes that happen due to the cycles of nature. The redescription of a site involves, first and foremost, providing the intervention of a topography, such as the provided by a waste landfill. It is essential to understand the relationship between nature, human intervention, and in it, and the natural and industrial landscape, and ultimately bringing all these aspects together. The energy that transforms and unifies them, entropy as a metaphysical concept to understand the order and disorder of the world. According to Smithson, we should embrace change. He updates the picturesque concept with that of entropy. This effort for continuity is something we architects and landscape architects can achieve through our work, establishing new mechanisms of relationship with the territory. It is necessary to see and understand the layers of waste accumulated in the landfills of the peripheries of contemporary cities as a phase in time, but not the only one, nor the least. Other new layers will help to transform them. Waste, understood as a project matter, becomes ground and soil, a support for new activities. Topographies that give continuity to the landscape and the territory are at the same time reveal themselves as alternative sources of energy by being able to take advantage of and transform the biogas from the accumulated organic matter. In this way, the landscape is understood as an infrastructural landscape. I believe in an optimistic future. Thank you very much.